Today, we're busting one of the biggest Microsoft 365 migration myths out there. Just lift and shift everything, cleanup can wait. If that were true, migrations would be faster and safer. But if it's wrong, well, you're dragging years of chaos straight into Microsoft 365, and Copilot will amplify that mess. Let's bust this myth. This is Microsoft 365 Mythbusters, where we bust the biggest Microsoft 365 myths with real tools and real experts. In most migration projects, IT's goal is simple. Get the content out of the old system, get it into Microsoft 365, and shut down the old thing. That's the mandate. Sometimes there's even a penalty if you miss the shutdown date. M&A, integration deadlines, end of support dates, hosting costs, and even AI projects can be blocked until the data is in Microsoft 365. Everyone says the same thing. Let's get there faster. We'll optimize later, we'll reorganize later, and we'll clean up later. Lift and shift without a plan, unfortunately, sometimes becomes permanent sprawl.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
When experts weighed in, they shared that what really happens in the majority of scenarios is that the migration finishes, the business celebrates, the old system's turned off, budget's closed, and everyone moves on. That phase 2 optimization, it usually never shows up. And it's no longer a project, it's a nice to have. So all the out-of-date content, duplicate sites, broken links, random permissions, unlabeled sensitive files you moved, congratulations, that's now your reality.
We fucked up.
And in Microsoft 365, content doesn't just sit quietly. It shows up in search. It shows up in Copilot. It shows up in places you did not intend. In other words, lift and shift without any guardrails isn't we'll clean it later. It's we're leaving today's mess for tomorrow's AI. Let's expand on why this myth, if it's wrong, could hurt you in the long term. When Copilot or a site agent or knowledge agent uses answers to questions, it might call on an outdated policy, say from 2019, and people could lose trust. That happens when we have too much information and content in there that's old, redundant, outdated, or trivial, or raw. In reality, it's not really Copilot that's failing, it's the junk you migrated. When you lift and shift everything, you're also lifting and shifting every overshared library, every temporary access that never got removed. And once it's in Microsoft 365, if your permissions aren't tightened, well, that content's now more discoverable. In search and sharing and in AI experiences, they respect permissions, but still surface whatever people technically had access to. And that's a risky conversation, especially one you don't want to have with compliance if it surfaces the wrong thing.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Now, storage is not free either. Storage at scale might mean migrating duplicate or obsolete sites and unneeded versions. It means often paying to migrate it, store it, back it up, govern it, and explain it when audit comes knocking. You could have scoped some of that out and saved costs. And for IT, all of that turns into more tickets, more cleanup, more ad hoc requests. You often didn't avoid the work, you just pushed it downstream to ops, who has less budget and more pressure.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
The secret seems to be that cleanup is actually really important, and that migrations are more about when the cleanup happens than not that we don't do it. Let's run 2 scenarios. Think of these like mini experiments. In scenario 1, what we do is what most orgs often want to do. Get up and lift and shift fast. Day 1 after the fast migration, it's technically successful, but the data that's been moved includes a lot of data that we could have scoped out or reduced. The system, of course, that it came from can be shut off, and we've reduced the immediate risk of running unsupported platforms or violating your M&A timelines, and of course, you can use this data with AI. Sort of mission accomplished. In arguing for this, many organizations, they feel they have to do this first step quickly because the legacy system is going to be out of support. It comes with a licensing cost where it literally can't be connected to Copilot until the data is in Microsoft 365. So pushing data forward can feel like the right call, and sometimes it really is the right call. But the trick seems to be when you do a cleanup. Now, let's look at a smart lift and shift, a adjustment where we don't just lift and shift it into that cloud environment where we have now redundant files and content, but what we do is we do some high-level, lightweight triage. Not full re-architecture, but work nonetheless. We flag entire site collections or libraries, or if it's a file share, certain folder collections that literally no one has touched in 3+ years. Those we might get archived instead of migrated, or we might migrate into collections that are going to not show up in search in the Microsoft 365 environment. We're making decisions on both what can be scoped out and what we can make as programmatic or broad-based decisions when we migrate it into Microsoft 365. We identify obvious security problems and we fix, or at least we tag those. We document legacy apps that won't survive the move so no one is surprised later. And again, I can't stress this enough, it's not a full redesign. We're just rebuilding some of the information architecture that's kind of foundational that we can do when we lift it and shift it very easily, or that we can identify just doesn't need to come over in the first place, and so that might readjust our approach. This means that an entire company doesn't need to find a new way of working before the cutover. It's just often quick quick targeted migration of those worst risks or exclusion of those, so you don't forklift that dangerous or obviously dead content into Microsoft 365. Let's talk about the big argument in favor of just focusing on lift and shift first. It turns out cleanup and optimization work is actually easier in Microsoft 365 than in the source environment. This shouldn't surprise many of us. For the most part, teams don't realize this, and for many who haven't used the newer technology, you might not realize just how much easier cleanup and optimization is. Once your content's in Microsoft 365, you have way better tools to clean it, govern it, label it, and prep it for Copilot. As an example, the Copilot knowledge agent itself can be a great way to simplify and improve the cleanup process. Let's say you have a series of sites. You could have owners of the sites use the Copilot knowledge agent to improve their sites, identifying inactive pages, content gaps through things that people are searching for but can't find, things like broken links, redirects, things like that. All these things can be fixed quite easily with AI support. This means that people can quickly identify those opportunity areas and then take the appropriate action, like reviewing those pages, making sure they make sense or not to keep, or retiring them. Now, this isn't limited just to something like sites and Copilot agents. This can be done in a number of other experiences, and sometimes the data makes all the difference. As an example, you can actually use your Microsoft 365 environment to apply retention rules or new policies, making cleanup continuous. This means that it's not just worthwhile doing the cleanup in Microsoft 365, but it becomes a great place to identify those opportunities and then to codify them in some sort of enforcement so that you can actually keep your Microsoft 365 environment clean. Contrast this with the legacy limitations that many deal with within their source environments. As an example, within a file share, there's no way to see what was viewed but not modified. So there might not be a modified date change, but the content has been viewed or downloaded. And this leads to a lot of people not wanting to delete or get rid of that content. When it gets into Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online and OneDrive, the second that data is in those environments, we actually can see what has been viewed. And not only can we see it as admins and IT pros, but the end users, the site owners, the people who work within those environments can also have that insight so that they can make cleanup more actionable and addressable, either through supportive tooling like the policies that we mentioned, or through great capability sets like the knowledge agent and more. This is why it's true that cleanup is actually easier and more sustainable once you're in the modern platform in Microsoft 365, because now you can build in AI, governance tooling, purview labeling, Power Platform automation, lifecycle policies, and so on. There are benefits to doing cleanup before and during the migration, but the majority of the work will often be done post-migration in the modern Microsoft 365 era. How do we help teams pull off some of that cleaning before and during without drowning in manual work? Well, one way is to use scripts and tools focused on identifying the cleanup and making it easier to filter it out and remediate it as you migrate. As an example, with ShareGate Migrate, we can use Report to identify unused sites really quickly. Not only can we do that, but we can also use it to find orphaned users or permission legacy that we want to leave behind. The steps are really straightforward. You essentially just go through 1, 2, 3 clicks. And in many cases, you can get the data that allows you to make those decisions with the business on what sites and spaces might be best for archiving or review. The point of all of this is not to never lift and shift. The point is do just enough triage before the move to avoid the obvious disasters, and then treat cleanup and optimization as an intentional phase of the project with tools and owners that make it easier. If you're looking for more insights into optimization versus migration, I would recommend an article that we released on the ShareGate blog. Optimizing SharePoint after migration is something that a lot of organizations do, and it is important to note that optimization is different than migration, even how you run the project, because how it's managed and how it's delivered is fundamentally different. What's more, within this, you'll also get a feeling for how migration projects have a start and end, but often optimization projects do not. And these things, amongst many others, can lead you down the right path to sustaining optimization. Right now, we're focusing on discussing the value and importance of migrations and whether cleanup should happen before or after a migration. So let's continue on that path. Let's take a step back. Is this myth true? Is it just lift and shift and we'll clean it up later? Is that a good migration strategy? Well, we're calling this one plausible. If plausible, only if you do two things. You run the pre-migration triage to avoid dragging obvious trash and issues into risky access, things like that, into Microsoft 365. Number two, you actually budget and assign owners for the cleanup in that post-migration or optimization phase. With the right tools and tactics, this can work. But if you skip those, if you don't clean up that stuff that's really important from the very beginning, or you don't have a proper investment into tooling and time to do the cleanup after the migration is done, then no, this myth would be busted. You wouldn't delay cleanup, you just moved the mess and made it louder. That's today's Microsoft 365 Mythbusters. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and ding that notification bell so you can see the next one. We're doing more of these for IT admins and Microsoft 365 owners so you can get more out of Microsoft 365 and sleep a little bit better at night. Drop your myths in the comments. We might test yours next. And remember, Microsoft 365, we got this.